Jewish cults and groups who call themselves Jewish but aren't actually Jewish. Hi everyone, Marian here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm doing a follow-up to my last video, which was all about what are different types of Jews and why are they different and how are they different from Reform, Reconstructionist, Conservative, Orthodox, Hasidic, Chabad. And in this week's video, I'm going to share all about what I'm calling Jewish cults and other groups of Jews who call themselves Jewish but might not be Jewish. Are they Jewish? Let's get into it. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Marian. I make videos about being a mom, being a Jewish mom, Judaism, and I'm so glad that you're here for this one. If you like it, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up to let me know and hit that red subscribe button down below so you don't miss any more of my videos. So like I talked about in my last week, there are all different types of Jews. Jews come from all over the world. They have different cultures and customs and backgrounds. There are Jews of color. There are gay Jews. There are every type of Jews under the sun, and that is beautiful and wonderful, and we love to have a rainbow of Jews, and they're all included and welcome. However, there are also some groups who identify as Jewish. So unlike Catholics, for example, Jewish people don't have one person like the Pope who's in charge of all the Jews all over the world, right? Or who can make rules or judgments about Jewish life. So what happens as a result of this is that it kind of can be a little bit loose on who can call themselves a Jew and what that means and who's going to accept that. So in my last video, I talked about the main groups of Judaism: Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform. And each of those groups have a rabbi or a rabbinical authority who makes determinations and rules for those groups of Jewish people, and they abide by those rabbis' thoughts and laws, and the synagogues that they go to adhere to the rules as well as like the thoughts of that rabbinical authority. So some of the groups I'm going to talk about in this video have been declared by various rabbinical authorities as well as courts in Israel to not be Jewish. So this isn't just my opinion on if they're Jewish or not, but rather what Jewish authorities have said. So let's start with Jews for Jesus, because I would say this is probably the most controversial group and a group that's had a lot of conflicting interactions with Jewish people. So Jews for Jesus began in the 1960s, but before that there were other groups of Messianic Jews, and there still today are other groups of Messianic Jews, but Jews for Jesus is probably the most well-known and organized among them. And the reason that a lot of Jewish people have conflict with this group is that Jews for Jesus has been in the past very actively proselytizing Jews, and what that has meant is that they had very targeted strategies to convert Jewish people into Jews for Jesus believers. And the reason that some people have even called this group a cult is that at times this has meant that Jews who leave their faith to join Jews for Jesus are then not allowed to speak to members of their family. They're not allowed to belong to groups that they had belonged to in the past. If they went to Jewish school, they're not allowed to go to that school anymore. But the reason that many Jewish people have a lot of anxiety and concern and difficult feelings towards Jews for Jesus is that they have personally lost family members and friends to this group, in the sense that after they became a Jew for Jesus, they no longer were allowed to associate with their family and friends again. So I can't say if that is like the overall practice and that's how it is today. Things definitely might be a little bit different, and it might depend on group to group and who's the leader at the time, everything like that. I'm just sharing some personal stories of people I knew growing up that were affected by this and things like that. But overall, that's why there's sort of a negative association between the Jews for Jesus group and Jews in general. So Jews for Jesus was formed in the 1960s, but before that there were lots of groups of Messianic Jews, or Jews who believed that Jesus was the Messiah. And I just wanted to touch on this because a lot of people ask me, like, what are Jewish people's belief about Jesus and the Messiah, and like, can you believe in Jesus and still be Jewish at the same time? So the Jewish belief about the Messiah is that the Messiah has not come yet, and that is very much a foundational, like, very core belief and very core Jewish ideology. And Jewish people pray for the Messiah to come all the time, and that's woven throughout our culture and different phrases you'll hear. Passover is a big time we talk about this, but Jewish people are always praying for Mashiach, for Messiah, and you'll hear the term Mashiach ben David because it's believed that the Messiah will be a son of, or like generation of, from King David. And there's certain certain things that the Messiah in Judaism is believed to do when the Messiah comes. So the reason that Jews don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah is that he didn't fulfill certain requisites of what Jewish people believe the Messiah is going to do. So one of them is that all Jewish people will return to the Holy Land of Jerusalem and Israel and will live there happily in peace and freedom. So obviously that hasn't happened yet. Another belief is that the third temple will be built, so our holy temple will be rebuilt, and obviously that hasn't happened yet. And that the Messiah, like I mentioned, will be a descendant of King David and will return as this king and ruler of the Jewish people, and everyone will be together in this like beautiful, almost like Garden of Eden like state of heaven on earth. However, I do get asked all the time from people who are Christian if it's okay to celebrate Jewish holidays and to adhere to certain commandments within the Old Testament, as they refer to the Torah. And I always say, like, yes. I mean, to me, it is not offensive at all. I think it's so beautiful that a lot of people who are really strong Christian believers have a lot of love for Judaism or for Jewish people and want to honor the tradition that, you know, was sort of this ancient form of their religion before their Messiah came. So I think that's beautiful. But also just to note that I know that these groups like Jews for Jesus and other Messianic Jews are evolving, and some of their practices, you know, from 10 years ago or a few generations ago aren't as much in conflict today as they were before. Okay, let's talk about a really controversial group that you might have seen in the media recently, and that is Lev Tahor. So this is one of these groups where anytime photographers can get like pictures of them or stories come out about them online, there's like a media frenzy. They're actually a very tiny they're actually a very tiny group. I think about 200 to 300 members, it's speculated. Oh, by the way, there's a dog behind me. So a very small group, and whether or not they're Jewish, it kind of depends on who you're asking, but most people consider them to be a cult and to not be Jewish. Some of the hallmarks they have is that women dress fully covered, so their faces might show, but everything else is completely covered. They're a completely closed group and don't associate with anybody else, even other Jewish people. And they had a very strong leader who kind of moved them out into isolation. They were in Canada, then they were in South America, and they wanted to be able to practice their religion or whatever they were doing without any government intervention, because they were accused of some horrendous things, including child abuse, child sexual abuse, and other things that just naturally happen when you have one person in charge with way too much power and a closed cult-like group. So if you're asking me, then I would say absolutely they are the epitome and antithesis of anything Jewish. They've stripped women of all their rights. They have forced young children into marriage. So this is the opposite of any Jewish values that majority of Jewish people hold. And even some of the things like when you just see them that make them distinct, like covering women and doing things like that, is just absolutely like not based in Torah, not based in halakha, and is really just about what can happen when men are given too much power. So there's a term in Jewish faith, and I think it used in Christian faith as well, of using God's name in vain. And what that means is it's not saying like, oh my God, that type of profanity in that sense. It's more like using God's name to justify your evil ends. So groups like Lev Tahor and other cults like that may call themselves Jewish and say that they're like fulfilling this Jewish prophecy and, living this like truthful Jewish life. But of course, we've seen that scenario play out with different cults and different religions. There's always people who want to use religion to their advantage and take advantage of people's faith. So I guess I'll just end with that cautionary note that Judaism is very much a free-thinking religion. And although that there are Jewish laws and there are Jewish rabbis who, comment on those laws and create ways for people to live and to be Jewish, Judaism is also about having free thought yourself. And that's a major Jewish value. So anytime you're interacting with a group who's forcing you to be or believe one way over another, that's kind of a very clear red flag that they're not really a Jewish group. So I'll end with that. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope I've shed some light on a topic that has a lot of depth to it and a lot of different opinions and controversies. I'd love to hear yours in the comments below. I'll be sure to respond to them. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!